Well, we're back again for another production session here of the 7th grade art project. And if you've been checking out the videos previously to this, well, let's focus this. Looks pretty good. You'll recall that we are using the alphabet that we made up in one of the previous sessions here to help us spell out our message. And our message is, of course, an ounce of prevention is greater than a pound of cure. It takes 24 characters to write that out. We have 24 squares to fill in, and we use these images off of our worksheet to spell that out. And then when we did the worksheet and the subsequent project, of course, we use this list of colors right here. We have to split the colors up in a 24 piece box of Crayola pencils, and so I restrict those colors to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders based on a 24 color pencil kit in Crayolas. Now I'm trying to reproduce what we do here in this these video sessions pretty much exactly the same way as you do it in the classroom, and so that would require day after day of you know, applying yourself to the coloring as well. And so we're simply just mimicking what we would normally do in the classroom here in the E lesson, or if you were making this up in the makeup lesson for you. So I'm going to keep my worksheet out, but simply off camera so I can reference it later. You can kind of see it there at the top of the screen. So using the 10 colors that were assigned for this particular project, and I just happen to have my 7th grade colors laying out by themselves so I can pick them up quickly. I think it's a good idea to have a slip sheet, a small piece of paper, or an index card that you put your hand on while you are coloring and rest it there. You're also going to need your eraser and, of course, a way to remove your scraps of eraser. Alright, so we've got to move on here. So we're going to point this here at the letter T, and the letter T is on our project here on our previous work we did on the worksheet, and it's simply orange, brown, and then aqua green. Now a lot of people will just go ahead and tag those things. So if it is orange, brown, and aqua green, then they'll just tag these characters in so they don't have to constantly be looking at the worksheet, and that's and then we've got aqua green, like that. So that's one way to go about doing this, and you could also set up your next letter that way, which is going to be magenta on the surround area right there, and it's going to be violet in the middle of all of that. And I think we've already done the letter O once or twice already, so we know that that's magenta on the top, and then it is the jade green, the kind of olive green, on the bottom. So the task is to try to get through 4 squares today at least. We've been kind of working at about a 3 square a day pace, and that could take us a while to finish this. So I'm going to get to work here. I've got some of my orange still left there, so because I want to conserve the colors, I'm simply going to start coloring right there. Although got a couple things still to do here first, preparation work wise. I'm going to step off camera for a moment and set our timer so that we've got about the same amount of time that we would have in a typical physical classroom to do our production. Alright, so we kind of stole a couple minutes there because we didn't have our timer going. Alright, back to work. So I've been receiving some comments about the videos, and I'm trying to improve that. Also, you might want to consider working with the controls and the settings on your screen. You can always you know, adjust the brightness. I believe you can adjust the contrast in it as well, and I think to some extent you can probably control the colors as well, maybe even the sharpness on the Chromebooks. Now, I know if you're using your computer at home, especially a desktop computer, all of those settings are available. So you might find that if you brighten the picture and adjust the contrast and the colors, that you can see what I'm doing a little more clearly. There's always going to be some minor loss of information when you go from the document camera then to the projector, and then from the projector into a camera again, and then from that we would upload that to a computer, and then we edit that, and then that is uploaded to YouTube. So it's a multi-step process, and each time you do something like that, you lose a little bit of quality of the project or product. So I would advise you to experiment with the display and the screen settings on your computer, and you could tighten a lot of this up, brighten it so it is more visible to you. You know what's funny is right below this is another letter O, and those are pretty easy letters to color in, so I may consider that too when I get over to the letters that I'm targeting for the day. Because now we're over the halfway mark, okay? So it takes a few days to set the project up and do the worksheet, and it takes a little more time in order to get the project drawn out and cleaned up, and then it takes a little bit more time than that when we start coloring it. So it's all part of your planning work, which I push the 7th graders a little bit to plan their work. 8th graders, they do absolutely have to plan their work, although we do some of the project actually together, just like we're doing right now. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm looking for all the little specks of white that have been skipped over, but I think I've got them all there. And the projection screen looks pretty good too. Okay, we're going to the brown, and it's still no need to sharpen it. It's still got a nice working point on it. So experiment with the settings on your display, and you may get a better visual experience with that. That's pretty important in a lot of when you're doing visual art. You do want to see what the instruction is, although you are watching in front of yourself on your screen what I'm doing, but you could adjust the settings on your display. Alright, so the letter T appears to be a pretty easy go so far. I really do like to keep switching my strike on my line a lot. That's a habit that is hard for me to get out of. I do like to color in one direction, and most people do, but you get a better finish if you scramble it up. It's just highly controlled scribbling. So I hope you all are making progress on your projects. You can always slow these videos down if you can't keep up, or you can pause them. I think it says that on the credits of every video, that you should feel free to pause it or replay it even if you are really struggling with some of the production. Or you could even go back and change this play speed, although that would make the sound of the voice, the narration in it, a little bit strange, but if you can handle that. Alright, so this is coming together pretty quickly. I'm hoping that we don't have too many complex letters here in the next few letters, so maybe we'll skip down to the next row too and take care of the simple things as quick as we can, and then we can worry about the more complex characters after that. So here we go, we're just keeping at it. That's a lot of making art, simply just applying yourself and focusing on what you're doing and paying attention to what you're doing. Art is not for everybody. These are kind of long attention span projects. They take 10 or 11 days to complete. I'd have to count up how many hours or days we've already spent on it. I know my voice is getting ragged from making videos on a daily basis. So here we go. That's good. But I think I'm going to run out of brown colored pencil here before I run out of stuff to color with. Well, maybe not. I might be able to stretch out that last little scrap there. Yeah, I guess I can. Alright, so it looks pretty good. We're going to have to go back and check the opacity of some of these little areas that may have been skipped over and neglected. I'm going to include them so they feel included. Okay, that's good. This color is against this this violet right here looks pretty good. Never thought that. So a lot of times 7th graders, since you have more freedom to create your projects, you all come up with some really interesting combinations of colors. Magenta and gray was one I never thought would look good together, but it looks fantastic together. And so does magenta and aqua green. They look great together too. Magenta and tan look good together also. I would have never thought that. Alright, that looks good. Let's move on here to the aqua green, and I still have a little bit of it left. Speaking of, oh, I gotta erase that. What is it up here? Starting to get careless. In fact, I think what I'm going to do, since I've already tagged these already with a little swatch of color, I'm going to go ahead and erase my letters since I already know what's going to be in them. Oh, that stupid. Alright, this one. And I'm going to also, when I get to here, I'm going to skip down to this letter O and take out some of these easy ones today. And then we'll be making much better progress that way. I'm kind of stalling out on about 3 a day. Okay, back to work. Now this is kind of a tricky, you have to keep that really careful when you get up against a darker color with a color like this aqua green, which is very light colored. You have to be very careful so you don't snag any of that darker color and smear it into the middle of it all. And it will pollute a lighter color if you're not careful with it. Now these two combinations of colors right here, like the brown and the aqua green, reminds me of the mint chocolate chip ice cream. So it makes me think of mint chocolate chip ice cream, I believe. It's been a long time since I had any of that. Could go for it right now. Alright, my aqua is very short though. I think I'm going to have to. I'm getting some good mileage out of it. I haven't snapped off a pencil yet, and I've been through a 6th grade project and most of the way through this one right now, but yeah, that's not much left of that. Maybe tuck it up in this corner here with the little sharp edge of it. Okay, I got to sharpen. Well, that's looking pretty good. So, here we go. Now, I'm hoping that we'll be able to put this together pretty quick here when we're finally get the coloring really going. I'm hoping that this particular production session, you know, I've been just getting about 3 a day. But as long as it looks good, I guess at least you can plan when you'll be done if you can get 3 a day done. Alright. This. Alright. Alright, good job here. Okay, aqua and brown look pretty good together. Alright, I guess we'll be moving on here. It's funny how that aqua green looks slightly different on the projection screen than it looks on the actual paper I'm coloring on. Alright, moving on here. So we're going to take on the letter I. I feel pretty confident about that. Now, this is another case where we've got a dark color and a light color touching each other, which is how this should look anyway. However, you should probably, when you have that option, color I guess the lighter color first. If we went with the dark color and the light color, then snag the dark color, it would smear it into the lighter color. If you do it the other way around, you go with the light color first. Well, if the dark color grabs any of the lighter color, probably nobody will notice. But that's a common problem, and so especially when the 6th graders are working with yellow or white, they tend to color some of the darker colors first. And then, well, the lighter. They want to put that black dot in. In the 6th grade language, this is a black dot. And they like to color that in first, and when they're coloring the yellow around, it keeps snagging that black dot and smudging it. They don't like that either. So that's how you avoid it, is by outsmarting the colored pencils. Alright, that looks pretty good right there, so I'll just keep on working the whole rest of the square. Alright, try a little bit of controlled scribbling. Roll the pencil frequently. Make sure you always got that little pointy edge on it that you can use for control work when you have to get up in the corner right next to the line. That's what rolling the pencil around in your fingertips does for you. So each day I make a video about what we're doing in the class that day. So really all you've got to do is just follow along with the video, and if you keep up with this video, then you're going to be fine. If you can't keep up with this video, then you've got to either work a little bit harder, or you're going to have to work on your own time. If I can get this much work done and undisturbed in a class period, you should very easily be able to as well. But I know that everybody will color and draw at different paces, and so you will have to either do some work outside of this video that we're looking at. I don't know why it's flashing again. I'll take that off there, maybe that's it. But if you're working along with me, you're probably making pretty decent progress. Alright, let's move on here. Keep this magenta doing its thing. Now here's another instance where two colors touch each other and it makes an interesting shape. In this case it's the R and the letter I. Where these two magentas come together, makes for some interesting design, random design shapes that just like a game of Tetris or something. Now we'll eventually probably outline around all of our squares so people realize where one letter ends and the next letter begins. That can be really confusing, and that was a problem we had many years ago, so we solved that by a 7th grader actually came up with that idea to outline the project, the squares, in black at the end of all of this. Although in this particular project it doesn't have to be black, it could be any dark color, like dark brown, dark green, violet, I suppose. Alright, I'm making really good progress here suddenly. And I'm hoping that little circle in the middle doesn't take a whole lot of time to color in. A little bit of control issues there, but I'm going to color over it with a dark color, so it should be fine. Sometimes I get too eager, too greedy. Alright, so this is kind of starting to come along. I may have to resharpen my pencil yet again. This seems like a lot of coloring, and it probably really is. Maybe this is in terms of square inches, if it's not just one solid color, like the letter Q is, then this could be the one that takes the most of a single colored pencil. But I don't know. Gotta put a stopwatch to them yet. Okay, it's looking pretty good here so far. Trying to address all little places where my colored pencil is skipped. All white areas. Dress it up for opacity reasons. It looks like I'm kind of starting to run out of pencil there again. Alright, now I definitely got to resharpen. I don't like the way that came out, but I'll make it work. Alright, so normally I think I'd be listening to music, but it's nice to have the peace and quiet sometimes, to be able to focus on what you're doing and not have distractions. I think that's one of the advantages of these e-lessons, or if you're making this up, makeup work. But I would say that it just takes away from what is normally a pretty active classroom. So I do really prefer to be in the actual classroom, the art room, working with real people in face-to-face. So this is kind of a strange and awkward way to teach, at least for someone who's very old school. Although I've learned a great number of things by watching YouTube videos on how to do various services and car repairs, and I've also I had to fix a washer one time, my mother's washer, and I had no idea how to even get the cover off of it, and so I looked it up on YouTube, and sure as shooting, there it was. There was a tutorial on how to disassemble a washer and fix it. I was shocked, and I followed it a few times, looked at it a few times, and then tried it, and I fixed that washer. So, YouTube is also a powerful tool. So you just gotta, I guess, get used to this method of lesson delivery, and it's kind of difficult for older people to get used to this, and so I'm struggling with it a little bit, but I do think that this is probably as close to the actual classroom experience as we're going to be able to get without getting together in an actual classroom. Alright, I gotta sharpen off that side of the pencil. Well, that's a little better. That'll get me through there. Alright, closing in here. So this is a good way in the morning to just kind of, get your mind, keep your mind occupied, and keep your hands out of trouble. This is usually some pretty easy early morning work. I do prefer to have classes in the morning. The classes after lunch at school sometimes are a little wild. However, the classes before that are usually pretty calm. So people are, in art class first and second period, and it's usually pretty calm in there. Although there's been some wild homerooms too over the years. Alright, this is looking nice. Okay, get it right in that corner. And I've got that little sharp corner on my colored pencil from constantly rolling the colored pencil around in my fingers and keeping that little working corner on there so I can dress up very sharp detail work. Alright, I'm going to check all my opacity issues. Then we're going to get out the violet and try to color in that dot and move on again to yet, maybe we'll make it to 4 today. That would be so helpful. Okay, back to violet. Violet needs to be sharpened. Oh, that's a little bit greedy. I hope it doesn't break. Alright, so this dot in the middle, I'm going to try to get over top of that magenta right there that I accidentally slung in there. And see, this is what I was talking about just a minute ago, that if I would have grabbed, if I'd have colored the dark color first in the middle and snagged some of it with the magenta colored pencil, it would smear that into the magenta. This way, if I go with the lighter color first and I were to grab some of that magenta with this violet, it would just smear that lighter color into the darker color and probably no one would ever notice. Now, I've seen a lot of people take some extreme liberties with some of these letters over the years. This one I've seen turned into, with 7th graders, I give them a little more freedom here, a yin and a yang symbol. Other times people turn it into a face. Other times people turn it into the sun or the moon. So I've seen a lot of strange things done with this. However, I simply just like to look at it as just a dot. That's very powerful. Purple dot. Getting around the curve here. Now I'm working kind of backhanded now. So you got to be careful when the colored pencil tip obscures what you're looking at. And if you're watching how I color, I've got a good part of the pencil between my hands and the surface I'm coloring in. If you grip real way down here, you color and you can't see what you're doing. You have to be able to see what you're doing when you color, or draw for that matter, or write, handwriting. You have to be able to see what you're writing, and we call that visual feedback. And visual feedback is really important in visual art. You have got to be able to know what the mark is. You shouldn't lift up your hand. When you color like this or you draw like this, you lift up your hand and it's a complete mystery to you what you're going to see. So you have to let that point of the pencil out so that you can get that immediate visual feedback and know, I mean, the precise moment when you make a mistake so that you can do something about it. Also, it shouldn't be a surprise when you lift your hand up to see what you made. You should know what you just made the moment that you make the mark with the colored pencil or a regular drawing pencil, or even a paintbrush. So some people will even hold a paintbrush all the way down at the very, very end in a death grip, and they wonder why they're getting paint everywhere and they can't keep it inside the line. And it's because they're not getting any visual feedback. And that visual feedback is really important to being able to pace your work and not have to go back and fix things constantly. You can see if you're doing it right or erroneously, all in that one. Alright, so you've got to be able to see the very point of the pencil. Now sometimes it does obscure itself, so you can't see behind the pencil point sometimes. And I think that's probably a good time to turn the art around, or in my case, move around the art. If I move the piece of artwork around too much, it'll make the audience here pretty dizzy. So traditionally, these are kept in one orientation. Now this surface is getting so glossy, it's hard to actually look at here in the studio. There we go. Alright, that looks fantastic, those two colors. This very opaque violet against that bright magenta. Now the funny thing is, they're both types of purple. So magenta is a red violet, and of course violet is violet, which is a form of purple. Alright, I think that's good. We're going to move on to the next one. Yeah, it looks like we got more magenta to do. And I might skip down here and do this magenta too at the same time. So we're going to wear out a magenta colored pencil on this project, it looks like. So you might have noticed I've got a timer going in the background. You can kind of hear it clicking. A lot of times I don't hear it clicking because I get focused on what I'm doing. And then when it dings, that means we've gone about 36, 37 minutes of time if we didn't have any interruptions during that period of time. So if there's an interruption, I reset the clock. And we keep on working. So that you get your full 37 production minutes each class day. And you should be able to make some sort of work. I mean, I'm thinking 4 squares is not too much to try to do, but I've been struggling with it myself. So 4 squares seems to be the goal, but 3 squares seems to be what we get done. So if you're coloring at the rate that I'm coloring, and I'm trying to work fast but really good at the same time. And so that's a pretty tricky work. Fast and good is tricky. Fast and reckless, not so hard. But what happens is you work fast and reckless and you make a ton of mistakes that have to be fixed, and that doesn't really get you anywhere either. So there's a certain pace that you can go where you get the fastest production with the least amount of problems. And that's different for everybody, but for me, you're seeing about as fast as I can work with colored pencil. During all of this, come here, get down there. See, I'm blocked. That's a point, an instance where the pencil actually blocks your view of what you're doing. There we go. And I'm going to have to sharpen up again. But that is very pretty, very glossy on the projection screen. Alright, that's a good sharpening. Okay, keep on going here. We've got to keep this project moving. And you take too much time away from it, it never gets done. And that's the way a lot of projects are. And you might have started some projects yourself, and then you take some time off from it, and you know what? It never gets done, does it? Alright. Now, when we get done with this magenta, I'm going to skip down to the next letter in the next row, the first letter in the next row, which is also the letter O, and also has the same colors as this letter O. And so I'm going to continue with the magenta down there and see if that helps speed up my production. Since I'm right-handed and I'm working from the left toward the right, that shouldn't cause me any problems as far as smearing my colors together or smudging them, because I'm, I'm coloring out of order. So I am going out of order in the next color. However, I'm not going to be running my hand through it either. I'm going to be able to move from the left to the right. Alright. Okay. Well, this is the best production rate so far, I believe, if you're keeping up with me. There we go. Alright, very good. Now I'm going to go back and try to address my opacity issues here real quick. I've got a few little scratch marks in there that I've somehow made. That was pretty good on there. There's a lot of shine on it. It looks like there's white marks on the projection screen, but what it is just how glossy this is. It's getting polished up. So I'm just kind of scribbling in on the little specks of white I see. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing down here in this area. So it's going to take a couple more days to finish our coloring, a couple more sessions. However, then that last session, if we space it out right, it should take about 10 days from the time we started with the alphabet page until we finish outlining this and get ready to consider grading it. And that will also be done with there's a separate video on how to grade your artwork, which I will also post at the appropriate time. Alright. Okay, I gotta sharpen up again. Oh, maybe not right away. It looks like I've got a little bit more mileage left on that tire. So you can't get real greedy when you're sharpening the pencils. You just got to give them about 3 or 4 good twists in the pencil sharpener, and then, you know, just use that point. Otherwise you snap the points off constantly. I've seen kids do that for 20 years, snap off the points of their pencils, and I don't even think they're really doing it on purpose. They're just getting too greedy, and you know, once you start breaking the tip of the pencil off, you're not helping yourself get your project done at all. I'm pretty happy that so far in this project, and I'm going to hope I don't jinx myself, but I haven't broken a lead off yet. So a lot of that's got to do with consistent pressure against the lead of the pencil, though, too. So if you're, you know, kind of coloring like I'm instructing you to, you'll probably find that your lead lasts a long time. And also, if you're using your own colored pencils at home, that's also you know, you get to take care of your own equipment and your own implements, and they don't get busted up like they would in the typical classroom. A lot of students are very rough with the materials, and that causes them to break all the way up inside the wooden part of the pencil. When you beat a pencil against the tabletop, if you've ever noticed that, people do that, what you end up doing, oh, there's our dinger. We're still going to finish. I'm going to finish at least this square above it, and that's going to put us at 37 minutes for the bell, so it'll be about 40 minutes here, and we'll have made 3.5 squares, so I guess that's making progress. That beats the just regular progress rate of 3 squares per session, so I'm trying to work as fast as I can and still get quality work. So I'm going to finish up this section right here, and I think I might just go ahead and do half of the other half of this one since I'm down here, and then we'll have something having some coloring represented in every row. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So it's coming along, but good artwork can take a while to make, just like anything can take a while to make. If you're trying to bake a cake, you can't rush that kind of thing. If you're trying to grow a garden, you can't rush it. You just got to wait. You got to do the proper thing while it's all working. You're never going to make progress in a garden if you're constantly pulling up the roots of the vegetables to see if they're growing or not. So that little saying is, you know, just be patient, and just sometimes things take a while to do. Rome, you know, the Empire of Rome wasn't built in just a few days. It took hundreds of years to bring that empire into existence. Alright, so what I'm going to do, and I can get started on that right away, I'm going to finish the bottom of this letter right here, so I have some level of completion. We'll be done with quite a bit here. So these, even though these were kind of easy letters today, still making them look good is simply not as easy as people may think. Okay, I don't really see any more lack of opacity in here anywhere. So I can go to my jade green now, and I'm going to finish this one down here, I suppose, and I'll come back to that one in the next session. So I'm going off camera a bit, just trying to keep it moving. So I like this jade green, but I'm partial to olive green anyway from my military experience, and Also, I just like olives, and I like olive green. It's a very underused color in the color pencil kit, but really is attractive. And when it's paired up with other various colors, it looks fantastic too. Now, strangely, it doesn't look very good against the aqua green of all of the things. If you put this, also this jade green or this olive green against brown too, it starts reminding me of camouflage. So it has psychological effects that you just wouldn't anticipate. Now we're up against the edge of the paper here, and we want to build ourselves like a little margin there so we can color it a little bit more freely. So I'm going to kind of trim that in a little bit right next to the edge. I'm going to have to, of course, lift that little piece of tape up and color under it. I think this is the first time I've used the jade green today, so I'm glad it came already sharpened this morning. Alright, now see, so sometimes progress gets made faster than other times. So this session, if you're keeping up with me, I got a half a square more done than I have been doing in the past here. So I'm going to try to kick this into high gear, and then we've got to move on. There we go. Yeah. Alright, well, I'm hoping that you're keeping up with the production here. If you are, you're doing a fantastic job. And when it comes to our work grades, that's going to help you out, because work grades are done at the end of each week of production class, and or class production, excuse me, for projects and your work habits. So I'll be posting a video on how to do that and how you're going to submit your daily work habits grade to me. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to have to sharpen this up again to finish up this square, so I'll roll around here. There we go. Okay, starting to look pretty good. I'll work down along this little edge here too. When you're working on the side of the paper, you gotta be careful not to color in such a manner that you snag the side of the paper and tear it. I mean, nothing is worse to the beauty of your work. It says amateur, like tearing it, although I've done it myself a few times. Sometimes I tear it when I've removed the tape. So, can't always say that I'm doing this better than anybody else, but experience does help. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Gotta get in there and address all these little skipped over areas as I move along. I like to finish a square and then just move on. It really bothers me to want to come back and try to fix it later, or make sure all the opacity is done right. So if you pace yourself properly during a project which lasts 10 or 11 days, then you end up working all the way up until the deadline and you can get your project done in time. And I see a lot of people who get it colored in real thin, and then they attempt to go back and dress it up at a later time, and what they've noticed is they never really get around to it. So I believe that this is the way to really get this stuff done. One good square at a time, then move on. Okay, now I got to pull up my tape right here. I'll put that back down on there. It might pull some of that green off, but I will take care of that at a later time when I am doing the outlining and the proofreading of the project. Alright, that is going to be about enough, I think, for one day. Let's go back and dress it all up. Well, that jade green looks almost like the yellow green on the projection screen. Okay, I'm going to get all these little specks of white dealt with. Tuck the colors right up next to each other. That's looking fantastic. Alright. Okay, think I'll just take this little scrap of tape just to hold that down for now. Well, there we are. We've done 3.5 squares at least in one session. That's really quite productive. So it beats the typical production rate. This is getting looks kind of funny down in there, but I'll have to work on that a little bit too. So tomorrow we're going to try to get, if we got 3.5 more done tomorrow, we should be able to go 1, 2, 3.5, and that will put us down to the last few letters. We're making very good progress on this. So I'll see you next session.